I've been trying to call. I've been on my own for long enough. Maybe you can show me how to love. Maybe I'm going through withdrawals. You don't even have to do too much. You can turn me on with just a touch, baby. I look around and see the city's cold and empty. No one's around to judge me. I can't see clearly when you're gone. And I said, ooh, I'm blinded by the lights. No, I can't sleep until I feel your touch. I said, ooh, I'm drowning in the night. Oh, when I'm like this, you're the one I trust. I'm running out of time, 'cause I can see the sun light up the sky. So I hit the road in overdrive, baby. Hit the road in overdrive. The city's cold and empty. No one's around to judge me. I can't see clearly when you're gone. And I said, ooh, I'm blinded by the lights. No, I can't sleep until I feel your touch. I said, ooh, I'm drowning in the night. Oh, when I'm like this, you're the one I trust. I'm coming back to let you know I can never say it on the phone. But whenever let it go, this time I said, ooh, I'm blinded by the lights. No, I can't sleep until I feel your touch. Till I feel your touch. Feel free to be whoever you wanna be. Feel free to dance, feel free to sing, just feel free. You know something? My generation, and the generations before me, and even some since, we used to watch shows like sitcoms and things like that every week. And things would happen in an episode, whether it was comedy or serious or, sad or whatever. And then you would come back the next week to watch the latest episode, and it would have nothing to do with the last episode. It would be like the last episode never even happened. You remember shows like this, and there's still some today, where it's like, what happens one week on the show has no bearing on what happens the next week. One week a character might go through something traumatic, and then the next week they're just all happy and in a good mood again. It's like nothing ever happened. You know those kinds of shows? Sometimes the NFL is like one of those shows. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes the NFL is like one of those sitcoms where you tune in to see what's going to happen one week, and something happens, and then the next week you tune in and it's just something completely different. It's like the week before never even happened. The NFL is much like that, especially early on in the season. And that brings me to the Tennessee Titans. Last week, it was horrible. The performance against Cleveland was horrible. Like, one of the worst I've ever seen. Lost 27-3. It's like, man, do we just need to tank? Yeah, people say, like, man, we need to just tank and get Caleb Williams and get out of here. And then yesterday happened. They come out in a game that nobody was picking them to win, and they beat the crap out of Cincinnati. A team, by the way, that they owed Cincinnati a butt whooping. And speaking of butt whoopings, this offensive lineman for the Bengals, who had a lot to say last season when the Bengals came to Nashville and beat the Titans. You remember he walked up yours, Tennessee, and he had some other language that I'm not going to use here on the podcast. Man, the guy didn't have a whole lot to say yesterday. You know? He was mighty quiet yesterday. I mean, as a matter of fact, he was asked about this. Now remember, this is the same guy who last year walked off the field and, up yours, Tennessee, and, had all this big, bold, brave stuff to say. Here's what he had to say yesterday when he was asked about it in the postgame. All of a sudden, he turns into freaking William Shakespeare. He says, to the victors, I can't even. This is the same guy. Last year, up yours, Tennessee. Here he is this year. To the victor go the spoils. In times of prosperity, adversity is forgotten. And in times of adversity, prosperity is not remembered. And we are in times of adversity right now. So we need to get back on the winning train. And we will. But obviously today, not good enough. This guy loses and turns into Aristotle? This guy loses and turns into William Shakespeare? Get out of here, bro. Up yours, Tennessee! To the victor goes the spoils. In times of prosperity, adversity is forgotten. Shut your mouth. Shut your mouth, Mr. Adversity. I mean, my gosh. So, what to make of this? I don't know, guys. I don't know. Hard to believe that Titans team yesterday was the same group of guys who put on that performance in Cleveland a week ago. I don't know. Number one, week one, they went out there and they looked awful against the Saints. Week two, they looked pretty good against the Chargers. Week three, they were horrendous. And now week four, they look great. So I don't know, man. I don't know. I want to believe that those Titans we saw yesterday, that's the Titans. That's who they are, okay? But, I just don't know if that team we saw against New Orleans and Cleveland, I don't know if they're still hiding in there somewhere. I don't know if they're still hiding in there somewhere ready to come out at the worst possible moment. I don't know. I mean, is the home field advantage in Nashville that big of a deal that it turns this team from being horrible into being great? Because they were great in every phase. They dominated this game yesterday. Dominated. So what, is it as simple as, hey, Vrabel said last week, we're going to figure out what kind of team we got. Did they just go back to the drawing board and, like Vrabel says, play better and coach better, and that was just as simple as that? Or what? I don't know. I don't know. But right now it feels like I don't know which Titans team I'm going to get from one week to the next. Am I going to get the team who it's a struggle to even get 5 yards? Or am I going to get the team that just marches up and down the field all day? Am I going to get the team who plays great defense and gets after the quarterback and plays disciplined football in the secondary? Or am I going to see the team that gets absolutely torched by Deshaun Watson? I don't know. I'm trying to make sense of it just like you guys are. All I'll say is this. I loved what I saw yesterday. And the most important thing that I saw yesterday that was improved from the week before was the offensive line. And I know there's, in games like that Cleveland game, we talked about it till we were two-tone blue in the face. All of the different areas where this team needed to be better. Well, you know, we talked about it and talked about it and talked about it. But to me, on offense, the offensive line is the most important for this team because Ryan Tannehill, at this point in his career, if he's going to be productive, he's got to have time. If he does not have time, he can't like run around and do all this stuff. He can't do that. Okay? So he needs some time. He doesn't need 30 seconds, you know, but he needs a little bit of time. He needs more than he was getting in Cleveland. And I thought yesterday, the offensive line, while not perfect, there were times when it got a little dicey. The offensive line was much better yesterday. And in particular, I will give the guy his credit. I thought Andre Dillard played a heck of a lot better than anybody thought he would. Did he make every block? Did he? He didn't make every block. Did he need help sometimes? Sure he did. But I thought he held his own yesterday. He deserves credit for it. I think the blocking schemes and the play calling allowed for him to have some help, and there were some play calls that helped him out, I think. Great. Felt like with Tannehill having more time to throw, you know, he was much, much better. Much better. That's what he needs. He needs time. He just needs time. And he can be productive. Can he be as productive as Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts? No. Because who can? But he can be productive if he has time to throw. He needs help. He needs help. We know that. We knew that coming in. He got none against Cleveland, and the offense did nothing. So the protection yesterday, the offensive line play, which was improved, still could be a heck of a lot better, but it was definitely improved. That was a difference maker. With no Treylon Burks, I was thrilled to see DeAndre Hopkins. I think that people need to realize how good of a pickup DeAndre Hopkins was for this Titans team. He's a third down machine. He is the third down conversion guy. And he's still got just some of the best hands in the game. He's dynamic. He can still go. I'm glad he's on the team. Chris Moore made another huge play. As Vrabel said, Chris Moore makes a big play every time they throw him the ball. And he had a big one yesterday. Wish they'd throw the ball more. And let me say this about Nick Westbrook-Ikine. We owe him an apology, me included, because I ranted and raved about Nick Westbrook-Ikine last year on some of my videos. Sometimes I even flat out said he was no good. I apologized for that yesterday, and I will continue to today. My problem with Nick Westbrook-Ikine was never actually with Nick Westbrook-Ikine. It was with the role that they tried to put him in last year. I didn't think that was where he needed to be. I didn't think he needed to be, wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2. He needed to be what he's been so far this year. He needs to be kind of the outlet guy. Almost felt like he was playing tight end a little bit yesterday. I love Westbrook-Ikine in that role. Hooray! Huzzah! Great! I love it. Good to see Josh Wiley getting involved yesterday. Because second to the offensive line, I mean, these tight ends have got to play better. Because through the first 3 weeks, you could argue the Titans had one of the worst tight end groups in the league. So, yesterday, Good to see Okonkwo back making some nice catches, but also to see Josh Wiley scoring his first NFL touchdown, and he also got his first catch in an NFL game yesterday. Need to see that progress. No, don't need to take a step back from that. The tight ends were better yesterday. And that brings me to the running backs. First of all, Tyjae Spears had a nice game. Way to kind of improvise when he dropped the ball. Could have been a disaster, but he picked it up, turned it to a big gain. Great. But I got to talk about Derrick Henry. I got to talk about the king, number 22. I have had enough. I've had enough of getting on platforms like YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. I've had enough of dealing with people trying to say that this guy is washed. I'm sick of it. I am sick of it. That is disrespectful. And for Titans fans to do it too, are you joking? Did you watch this guy yesterday? That touchdown run that I played over and over again during the countdown today to the YouTube live stream, that was sickening. He was sickening on that run. Breaking tackles, stiff-arming people, outrunning them to the end zone. If you think this guy's washed, you need to really go sit alone in a room and reevaluate your life choices. Because this guy is still that guy. He is the greatest Titan of all time. Yes, better than Steve, better than Eddie, better than Earl, better than any of the others that you can come up with. He's the greatest Titan of all time. And I am not going to sit here and listen to people. When fans of other teams try to come in and say the guy's washed, that's whatever. They're fans of other teams. They want him to be washed. They're just talking smack. But when I got to deal with Titans fans who are like, we should trade him. Have you lost your freaking mind? I'm sick of it, man. I'm sick of it because that same offensive line that couldn't protect Ryan Tannehill against Cleveland, they couldn't create any running lanes for Derrick Henry. I also thought the play calling was not great in week 3 especially for Henry, when you're trying to run the old pitch up the middle that's never worked. But man, running that kind of pitch out to the edge where he can get up a full head of steam and start running people over. All right, yeah, that's the kind of stuff I like to see. I don't want to hear any more. So, all off season, I said it on this podcast a million times. We got to stop relying on Derrick Henry for everything. We got to stop relying on him for everything. We've got to start throwing the ball more, and our only way to win cannot just be to hand Derrick Henry the ball 40 times a game and hope he goes for 250. We've got to have other ways to win, and we've got to get other guys involved. I said that all offseason, and I stand by that, right? But through the first 3 weeks, especially weeks 1 and 3, I feel like we went too far the other way. And we were, not putting him in the game at all. He's standing on the sideline all the time. Now, that to me, that was too far the other direction. That was too much. Yeah, we need a more balanced offense. We need more guys to contribute, but we don't have to just forget about Derrick Henry standing over there on the sideline doing nothing. What I liked yesterday, I liked his usage more. I liked Tyjae Spears' usage more. You remember in 2020 when Henry went for 2,000 yards. That was the season he had 2,000 yards. Yeah, he had 2,000 yards, and yes, he was a focal point of the offense, but A.J. Brown had over 1,000 yards that season too. Corey Davis nearly had 1,000 yards. It was a much more balanced offense. Yes, Derrick Henry was like our guy, but we could still throw the ball, and we were effective in that play-action passing game. And then the last couple of years, it was like Derrick Henry all the time. All I wanted was to get back to a more balanced offense so that we didn't have to rely on Derrick Henry for so much. Okay? And yesterday felt about like what I wanted to see. He's a focal point. He's one of our main guys, but other guys are contributing too, so that you have to account for other guys. I liked the usage of Derrick Henry yesterday. I liked the usage of Tyjae Spears. Thought the snap count was about right for both of them. And I say yes to all of that. Great. And yes, Tannehill was much better yesterday. The whole team's just got to find more consistency. There's no reason to go back to what we saw against Cleveland and New Orleans. There's no reason to go back to that now. I don't want to see it again. I'm not saying you're not going to lose some more games. I'm not saying there are going to be days where it's tougher than it was yesterday. But I don't want to see the horrendous performances that we saw against the Saints and the Browns. I don't want to see it again. Because you've shown what you're capable of now. And I don't want to go back to that. I don't want to go back to Tannehill being sacked every time he drops back. I don't want to go back to Tannehill throwing a pick like crazy because he's being careless with the ball. I don't want to go back to guys not being able to get separation. I don't want to go back to bad play calls. Like, we got to have more consistency. Because everybody in the AFC South is now 2-2. Every team in the AFC South is now 2-2. So after a month of football, we're kind of at a clean slate right now in the AFC South. And we've got a big AFC South matchup coming up against Indianapolis. And I'm going to roll around on the floor and cry if we go to Indianapolis and revert right back to what we were doing against the Saints and the Browns and not being able to figure out how to move the ball. No. We played fast yesterday. We were the aggressor yesterday, and I don't want to go back. I don't want to take a step back. There's got to be more consistency with this team because I think we all want to see more of what we saw yesterday. I haven't even talked about the defense yet. People are talking about the Titans defense in the chat. A Titans defensive line came back to life yesterday. They came back to life. Against Cleveland, they worried me because they kind of went to sleep. Yesterday, they came back to life. Simmons in the backfield like crazy. Autry in the backfield like crazy. Arden Key had a great sack. That's an underrated play from yesterday because the Titans already had a big lead. But Arden Key put in a great effort to get a sack yesterday. Harold Landry in the backfield again. Azeez Al-Shaair all over the place yesterday. What a game from him yesterday. He was everywhere on the field. Secondary had a great bounce-back performance. Great bounce-back performance. Byard, Hooker, Fulton, McCreary, all those guys, they rebounded well. Now, we need more consistency. Do not go back to what we saw against Cleveland. That lifeless, looks like you'd rather be somewhere else. We do not need to go back to that now. This is what's got to be from now on. And I thought the defense was really, really good. I mean, with Joe Burrow and T. Higgins and Jamar Chase and all those guys out on the field and you don't even give up a touchdown, what more can you ask for than that? Okay? Outside of the first possession the Bengals had, I don't feel like they moved the ball very well at all yesterday. Good to see Nick Folk. He still ain't missed a kick this year. What is he, 9 for 9 now? Guy's still making all his kicks. Love it. Love it. Love to see Stonehouse getting some good punts inside the 10 yesterday. Love to see the play call on the goal line with the King Cat bringing Big Jeff in there. Again, Josh Wiley getting involved for his first NFL touchdown. Great. Love it. Love it. More of that. The Titans have played 2 weeks in a row. Last week they lost 27-3. This week they won 27-3. So which team is it going to be going forward? Is it going to be the team that comes out on the wrong side of these games or the right side? I much more prefer that we come out on the right side of these games because that's a lot more fun and it has me in a lot more good mood here on the Two Tone Talk Podcast, episode 41. Okay? I don't want to see that Cleveland version of the Titans again. Let's keep that version we had yesterday where everybody's having a good time flying around. Derek's getting his touches. Tannehill's got some time to throw. Yes. Yes. More of that. Let's talk about some of the other games from yesterday because, like I said, the AFC South, everybody's 2-2. Kind of feels like we're all at a stalemate right here. And so we got to talk about one of those AFC South teams, the Jaguars, who didn't have the start to the season they wanted, right? I mean, they've kind of got embarrassed against Houston last week, but they come back in London against Atlanta, get a much-needed 23-7 win. Falcons, man, I don't know. This Desmond Ridder, not sure he's your answer there in Atlanta for old Arthur Smith. I think there are some good things about this Falcons team, but Desmond Ritter's not one of them. And the Jaguars get a bounce-back win. We'll see if the Jags can kind of build on this because they've got to play the Bills this upcoming week, and I think the Bills may be the hottest team in the NFL right now, so we'll see how they fare against them. But the Jags needed that win because if you lose to the Falcons yesterday, you're looking at disaster. Bills just all over the Dolphins. I talked about the Bills just now, the hottest team in the NFL. Miami put up 70 points last week. Everybody said they were the best team in the league. I said right now they're the best team in the league. Buffalo Bills brought those dudes back down to reality yesterday and stomped them. 48-20. You know, Tua looked rattled. Josh Allen looked great. And right now, I think the Bills are the team to beat in the AFC. They just look great. It's early, but right now the Bills are looking real good. Broncos, Bears, man, what's going on in Chicago? What's going on in Chicago? Blew a 28-7 lead. They just one step forward, 18 steps back. This organization's in complete turmoil. And the Broncos finally get a win. They get their first win of the year. I don't know if this was about Denver being good or Chicago just being that bad. I don't know, but Denver needed the win, and Chicago, it's a bad situation there. Ravens all over the Browns. Our friends the Browns who killed us last week, they deserved this. This is exactly what they needed. They won 27-3 last week over us. This week they lost 28-3 to the Ravens. So, you know, there you go. I will say they were without Deshaun Watson, so they never really had a fair shot here. But that defense that the Titans had such trouble with last week, the Ravens didn't. The Ravens put up 28 points. Browns couldn't score at all, and the Ravens with the Bengals not looking as good as people thought they would, this division really feels like it might be shaping up for the Ravens here, who continue to look pretty good. Speaking of looking pretty good, a team I hate to see looking good, and that's the Houston Texans. The Texans, after getting a big win over Jacksonville last week, they pounded the Steelers 30-6. Now, that was without Kenny Pickett, and the Steelers aren't the best team in the world, but C.J. Stroud looks very good. He looks very good. And this team, who looked not so good 2 weeks ago, now after 2 straight wins, they've got Atlanta coming up this week. I mean, Houston's probably better than I thought they were going to be, and I'm a little worried about the Texans right now. In fact, I think there may be an argument to be made that the Texans may be the best team in the South right now, because the Titans need to find some more consistency. Obviously, the Titans looked great yesterday, but they've got to find some consistency. The Jags are kind of up and down. The Colts, gritty, but don't have a lot of talent around Anthony Richardson. And the Texans, this C.J. Stroud looks like the real deal, and I hate to say it. Vikings over the Panthers. The Panthers just don't look good at all. And the Vikings, you know, they're kind of rolling a little bit now. They got 2 wins in a row, but it still feels like they're ugly wins. It feels like they're wins that they're just barely escaping with, which still counts, and that's great. But the Vikings get the win. The Panthers, just not a very good team at all. Rams beat the Colts in a good one, 29-23 in overtime. I was glad to see the Colts lose, because if the Colts had won, they would have been 3-1 and in sole possession of first place in that AFC South. But they lost, so everybody's 2-2. The Rams had a big lead in this game and give it to the Colts. They came back, tied it, and had all the momentum, but at the end of the day, it was Stafford and the Rams in overtime. Rams probably a little better than I thought they were going to be so far, but the Rams beat the Colts 29-23. The Bucks all over the Saints, man, and I'm starting to wonder if these Bucks may be in this thing, for the long haul. They're 3-1. And a big division win over the Saints where they dominated them. The Bucks' only loss was to the Eagles, who are one of the only 2 unbeaten teams left in the league. I thought that the Bucks are definitely surprising. Definitely the surprise team of the league so far, and we'll see what Tampa Bay is able to do. But they whooped New Orleans yesterday. Absolutely whooped them. Commanders against the Eagles. The Commanders put up a ton of fight, man. These Washington Commanders, they fight their butts off no matter what happens. But the Eagles end up getting the 34-31 win in overtime. A.J. Brown had a pretty good game for the Eagles yesterday. And, the Commanders showed that they can compete with these heavyweights here. Eagles got the win at the end of the day, and I know there's no such thing as moral victories, but I don't think Washington has anything to be ashamed of after this game. They played tough against a team that nobody thought they could beat. Eagles are once again one of the only unbeaten teams left in the league, and it feels like they are on a collision course with the 49ers there in the NFC. Bengals, Titans, already talked about that. Raiders, Chargers, this was an interesting one. The Chargers were dominating. The Raiders came back, had an opportunity to win, and threw an interception on the goal line. Chargers end up getting the win. And the Chargers are 3-1, I believe, 2-2. They're 2-2. These are one of the teams that the Titans have beaten so far. It's interesting because if you had told me the Titans would be 2-2 after 4 games, I would have assumed they would have beaten the Browns and the Saints while losing to the Chargers and the Bengals. But in typical Titans fashion, it is the exact opposite of that. They beat the Chargers and Bengals and then lose to the Saints and Browns. But Chargers, Justin Herbert made the big throw at the end to kind of put the game away. Obviously, we know he's a talented guy, but there's still something off about this Chargers team. The Raiders were without their starter, Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't know if he would have made that big of a difference, but Chargers get a win over the Raiders. Cowboys just stomped the crap out of the Patriots, 38-3. And I'm telling you, the Mac Jones era is probably about to come to an end in New England. I thought he was absolutely atrocious against this Cowboys team yesterday. I think it's going to continue to be a very long season for the Patriots. And the Cowboys kind of, I said a little bit ago, if the Eagles and the 49ers are on a collision course toward each other in the NFC, the Cowboys probably not very far behind. I know they slipped up last week against Arizona, but the other 3 games they've played, they've just destroyed their opponents. So Dallas is definitely in the mix there in the NFC. And speaking of being in the mix, the 49ers over the Cardinals 35-16. I think most people thought the 49ers would win this. 49ers just look like a well-oiled machine, man. They just have weapons all over the place on offense and defense. And Josh Dobbs and the Arizona Cardinals could only do so much about it. Christian McCaffrey making big plays. Brock Purdy smart with the football. So the 49ers, to me, still probably one of the better teams in the league, if not the best team. And let's talk about Sunday Night Football. The Chiefs beat the Jets 23-20 last night. Here's what I want to talk about with this game. And I'm not like a Jets enthusiast. I'm not here to speak on behalf of the Jets. I am kind of rooting for Zach Wilson because people are so hard on him now and calling for his head. But I'm not like a Jets enthusiast, but I have to say this because I've ranted about it on this podcast a million times, and I will continue. It is embarrassing as a fan to watch games like this where guys are out there competing like they've never competed before, and the game comes down to an incompetent referee who can't... Sorry if you guys heard that. My computer's trying to update. Dismiss that. It comes down to some incompetent referee who can't see an obvious holding call on the 3rd and 22 where Mahomes scrambled and picked it up, Meanwhile, the Jets defensive lineman is getting held in one of the most egregious, obvious holds in history. You can see it live as you're watching, and especially as you look back, how that's not called. And in fact, they actually called defensive holding on that play. Okay. Then you have the Jets getting an interception, and the referee waits until he sees the ball has been intercepted to throw the flag and call one of the most horrible defensive holding calls you have ever seen. Furthering the idea in some people's mind that these referees trying to rig this thing, or that somebody's trying to rig this thing for the Chiefs to win. Because in case you didn't know, Taylor Swift's here. In case you didn't know, I mean, my God, I don't even have a problem with Taylor Swift, but like there was a moment last night where the Jets scored a nice touchdown, went on a great drive to tie the game, and the first thing Al Michaels says is, "Whoa, Taylor Swift's in the house," and the Jets scored. I'm like, man, if you guys don't shut up, I'm going to drive to New York just so I can punch every one of you in the face. I'm sick of hearing about it. I don't have a problem with her. I don't have a problem with Kelsey. I'm sick of hearing about it. I'm sick of tuning into Sports Center and hearing about Taylor Swift. I'm sick of tuning into football games and hearing about Taylor Swift. I get it. She's dating Travis Kelce. I couldn't care less. That's not even what I'm here to rant about. I'm here to rant about the referees. The referees just completely robbed the Jets of an opportunity to go win this game. Because the 3rd and 22 that they ended up giving to Mahomes, it would have held him to a field goal, kept it a one-possession game. The interception, obviously they could have gone and got a field goal to tie it or a touchdown to win it, but they don't even get the opportunity to because these refs are bad at their jobs. And they're not held responsible, and they're not held accountable for it. They just make these horrible decisions, and you're not allowed to say anything. I watched the press conference with the Jets coach afterwards, and he was asked about it, and he was like, "I'm going to choose to remain silent." And I'm like, it's ridiculous, man, that these guys work this hard and they have to choose to remain silent because if they call out this awful, terrible, unacceptable officiating, they're going to be fined or suspended or something. That's ridiculous. Everybody else in this league is held accountable. Arden Key for the Titans got fined because he had a tough hit on Deshaun Watson last week that was a little too violent. So we're going to hold him accountable for that. We're going to hold all these different people accountable. We hold coaches accountable. We hold players accountable. But when it comes to referees who are literally deciding the outcomes of games, it feels like there's no accountability. In fact, the idiot commissioner is going to come out and say that they're just doing the greatest job in the world. We owe them. They're great at what they do. No, they're not. They're not great at what they do. It's embarrassing to watch. Anyway, and it's not about defending the Jets. It's about just the integrity of football, man. Integrity of football. Anyway, the Titans clobbered the Bengals yesterday, and that's, more important to me. Titans got the big win, and now Indianapolis is on the horizon. And I can't think of a better way to follow up whooping the Bengals than with whooping the Colts. And there's a real opportunity for the Titans here because you can beat the Colts, okay? Jags could very well lose to the Bills. And then who knows about Houston and Atlanta, but you can really pick up a game on at least a couple of these teams. Could be a big week for them. Obviously, there's talk about Nicholas Petit-Frere being back. There's talk of Kyle Phillips being back. There's talk of Peter Skoronski being back. So, and maybe Traylon Burks can be back as well. So, a lot to be encouraged about. The Tennessee Titans heading to Week 5 against our old friends, the Indianapolis Colts. Thank you guys for joining me here on the Two Tone Talk podcast. This has been episode 41, and it's the Two Tone Talk podcast where we're staying way too high on the wins, way too low on the losses. I will be back Friday to preview the Titans-Colts game, as well as to talk about all of the Week 5 action to come, make picks, do the power rankings, all that stuff is coming at you Friday. It's going to be a good time. Hope everybody has a good day on Victory Monday. Y'all have a good one. I'll see you soon. Tighten up. Bye, everybody.
Feels like the world is picking on ya. Feels like like it's picking on me, but trying to please everybody, that ain't no way to be. So many people try to get you to fit their mold. I think it's time for